Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of InsurTech LA. My name is Gilad Shai, and today I have the pleasure to host Paul Tyler, the Chief Marketing Officer for Nassau Financial Group, formerly known as Nassau Re. Paul leads the marketing strategy, direct-to-consumer channel and innovation activity at Nassau. In addition, he launched Nassau Reimagine, an InsurTech-focused incubator based in Hartford. Please join me for a 40-minute conversation with Paul. Hey Paul, how are you doing?
Well, good. How are you?
Amazing. I don't know. So I thought about, for this recording, what should I have? Should I just have my t-shirt? Should I actually wear a jacket? And I have my hoodie just over there, just to make sure, because I wasn't sure if we are going to do that, super professional or COVID professional.
I can always go change it out. It's actually, I've had this discussion with a bunch of people, which is, what do you wear, right? What do you wear for what? If I show up with a suit and a tie and a jacket. However, I've seen good arguments both ways. I've gotten to know a great wholesaler who has spent a number of years prior to the pandemic trying to get really good at virtual meetings, and he'll actually put cologne on. He says his wife laughs at him, but he'll put cologne on because he wants to make it feel like
going to the office,
like he's going to the office.
Yeah, it frames it. It places you in the right mindset. It's like, yeah, I'm going to the office. And it's funny because we are recording that during ITC week. And I had, the 15 minutes conversations, which all of them, we made sure that they are 30 minutes. And one of the guys who is an investor banker, he showed up. It's like all dressed up with the tie and everything. And I was like, shit, I'm underdressed. And you know me, in conferences, I like to dress. It's
right.
But nowadays, it's most definitely, it's a question of how do we set that up?
Well, it's interesting too. We talked a little bit before, but what is the psychology and how do you effectively communicate, via Zoom? And I think people have gotten sophisticated. I think most people have figured out, okay, I got to light this thing, put the lights behind the camera. Before it was like, okay, is this like an FBI informant on 60 Minutes or something? No, I think most people have kind of gotten out of that. But I think kind of the next level is how do you communicate truly effectively via this medium? And we're all learning. Our business has been so dependent upon face-to-face sales. It's interesting. I mean, this whole pandemic has just turned all of the rules on their head. People said, insurance is, Paul, insurance is not, bought, it's sold. You have to have somebody in here. Okay, wait, you can't be face-to-face. You must figure out how to make it. You must figure out how to get a bot, or you're not going to be able to sell. So it's kind of flipped the tables on a lot of people. And our industry honestly is suffering right now because, the agents who used to be going out, running the dinner seminars, going to events, buying time, sponsoring them, showing up at people's houses, just doing the rounds, can't do it. So we've actually tried to jump into the lurch and say, okay, look, hey, any of you raise your hands who want help. We're learning too. We're going to try to teach you and figure out how to do this at the same time. And so, we had this was interesting, a client appreciation event for one of our agents in North Carolina. I'm telling you, the cameras went up. I'm like, oh my God, these are all clients. And oh my God, they're actually on Zoom.
Paul, I'm sorry, you're bouncing your mic. So as you're,
oh, I'm sorry.
From all the enthusiasm, you have a really good and sensitive mic over there. It's just like bouncing all over the place. No, right. So by the way, just for the crowd, Nassau Re, you're selling annuities, all the different flavors of life products. Anything else?
Yeah, we actually, we stopped selling life insurance as of April. Okay. It was not, it was more, it had nothing to do with, quite honestly, with COVID. It was more state of the industry and some of the drops in the interest rates. But yeah, we're and our main business is selling annuities, retirement income products and solutions to seniors.
Mm-hmm.
We also sell Medicare supplement, which we just some of the companies we purchased have had in-force blocks. Now we're back in the business, starting to sell that.
Yeah, great. So, and annuities, it's perfect for that, right? Annuities, we talked about the rates that have been going down, and how do you sell that? You need to do that in person. So, how is that changing? How does it even make sense, and how is that going to roll as we are getting deeper and deeper into the pandemic?
Yeah, and I would say, the first 2 months, I would say probably 80% of our agents kind of ran for cover. Wait, this is going to happen. It's going to be over. If you listen, don't want to get into politics. If you've listened to some of the politicians, it was just going to, disappear. Guess what? It didn't. I don't want to spoil alert. So, a number of agents just sort of took time off. And I would say those who didn't said, well, let me look at where the map is where can I actually meet with people? Some of our agents had, of course, licenses in Florida, as well as Connecticut, New York, other parts of the Northeast, or a little bit, followed the sun. They were actually able to physically relocate themselves to keep their business going. Well, that only worked for so long,
Mm-hmm.
because guess what? The virus spread. But a few of them actually have done remarkably well. I mean, shocking well. In fact, they're having better years than they've had since as they've been in the business. Those generally were able to work effectively like we are right now.
Interesting.
Yeah.
No, that's very interesting. I'm actually very curious to know how come, because common sense tells us, oh, there are a couple of different trends. So what made them successful at this point?
Yeah, I think they were probably the ones I know of, either had a business where people were already accustomed to working with them on camera. I know there are a number of agencies, very successful agencies, that have made webinars, sort of a mainstay of their practice. They recognize the benefits of not, driving miles and miles and miles to meet a client who might not be there, versus do it this way and actually have more appointments in a given day. So I think the ones who had already kind of wired their practices so that they had Zoom or web conference was actually a plus for their business model, they've done record business. I've seen this in not only our company but other companies, or they had a very targeted market, and they had a very good way of reaching people indirectly before they actually talked to them. So they didn't lose the referral flow. They just had to change the way that they set the appointments up.
Gotcha. So what else do they need in order to do that? Because I'm a pro agent. I think that agents are not disappear. And I think that COVID, as we talked about the digital transformation, who was the main, was it the CEO, CIO of COVID? Agents are the same. And I think that's an amazing example how COVID pushed them to become digital.
Yeah. Now our channel is really to get more from here over to there. I won't kid you. We don't have the playbook. We're building the playbook as we're working with them.
And is there some sort of, okay, so you're building that. Is there some sort of support from corporate, or is it's their playbook? They are writing it.
We're doing it, collaboratively.
Okay.
Everybody's business is different. Everybody's starting from a different perspective. Each one sort of has their own niche or connection with their clients. So I think it's a TBD. I think there's a formula here. I think with a bunch of variants. I do think the importance of existing clients who will give you legitimate referrals, I think, is absolutely key. So if you were just running customers through, didn't care about them before, you're going to have a tough time. If you have a bunch of people who feel good, you gave them good service, they had a good experience. I think that group will carry you through this time.
Now, are there any other products that you're looking into now, or focusing on annuities? Because annuities are, I don't know, where do you see that in the next, well, I have no idea about COVID, but let's assume 2-5 years.
I think a great question. Huge demand. You think about what people normally, see, to go back to the old adage, people, don't go to the store to buy the drill. They want to buy the hole. What's the hole? And everybody is worried, especially more today than they were, even February 15th, about what that future is going to hold for them when they get to retire. First of all, the date may have changed. So, I thought I had 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 years more work. And you know what? I got laid off. Now I'm stuck with this 401k. How big is this hole? I plan to save this much more. What do I do? Do I take money out of my 401k to pay expenses? How can I get some certainty?
Yeah, that's a great question, because we are in such an age of uncertainty, and we have no idea what's coming next, because there is no, people are saying, oh, most plagues disappeared after 18 months, or we may have some sort of a cure or a remedy or some sort of a vaccine in somewhere in August, maybe, right? That's a great question, because people are losing their jobs, and from economic standpoint, it's not so simple. And then it's a question, how can you even plan it?
It's not. Annuities, unfortunately, they're complicated to explain. As mentioning, chatted with a 72-year-old on our online website and talking to him for 30 minutes on the phone. It's a whole interesting story about how clients are going from person to website to person back to digital means. This customer journey is, if somebody's trying to map this stuff, it would look like, the New York subway system, when you get done with it. I think it's, they're incredibly complicated, but the value is, amazing. Wait a second. I give you this amount of money, and you can tell me that you're going to pay me this for the rest of my life. Yeah. So the market goes down and I'm not going to lose money. Well, asterisk, ... Yes, your account value will not go down because of market, conditions, but read the following set of fine print so you understand about how fees work, right? And that's where it gets more complicated. But the basic notion is what we're selling to people is saying, look, if you're young, you stay in the market, put your money in there, let the market run. This thing is temporary; it will come back. However, when you get to the end of your career, you're in your 50s, you're in your 60s. Yeah, the market come back, but it may be too late. This is called known as Moshe Milevsky wrote some famous papers about 10 years ago. He's a Canadian behavioral finance professor, who, by the way, will be on our podcast. I'll send you the link. He'd be somebody good for you to talk to. Showed that you can never recover. You may not have time at the end of your retirement to recover. And what happens if you have to you stop making contributions and start taking money out when the market is down? It can be catastrophic for retirement planning for years. So what we're doing is, if people start taking money out of their 401k, putting into annuity, you're effectively almost moving to another asset class that takes market risks away and almost, is locking in your own personal pension plan. So that's going to be there. Now, the challenge is, as interest rates come down, of course, the money that we put in here, that guaranteed income starts to go down and down, because we're investing in the bond market to do this. So it's challenging. People need the product more, but the absolute value is going to feel less. So I think that's the challenge we have going into the next 2 or 3 years.
And no, that's very interesting, especially how that will work, supporting the agents who are making the sales, because your only distribution channel are the agents. I remember 2 years ago when I started Bound, We had many different conversations about building and leveraging the affinity groups for lead generation. We worked with a couple of different ventures, how to do the underwriting for term life. We had all kinds of different things that were running in the background. You've been a voice of change, right?
Yeah. So yeah, no, listen, I've had a really, I've had an interesting career, and I think I'm like, a great case study in a lot of pivots. You have to be dynamic, you have to adapt. And I had, I spent close to 12 years at another nameless, very large insurance company. And it was a great experience. I worked with the company when they went public, had some really great jobs, worked for some great people. I probably had I'm going to tell you 6 micro careers in that 13-year period, because there was just so much management turnover during that point of time. Now, some of these jobs were just crazy jobs, compliance. Okay, now I'm doing like IT, operational planning. Now I'm doing sales. Now I'm doing finance. It was, 2006, 2007, you would have looked at my resume and say, who is this person? Explain this. What is this thing? I saw these mobile phones come along in 2000. I saw the iPhone come out, be announced in 2007, came out in 2008. At that point, I knew some people in the publishing industry and said, okay, this is going to be big for our business. Wait a second, because we've always been selling our stuff for remote places. It's also always number intensive. It's also had to do with people. I see the social stuff come up, Facebook, and there's something really big and powerful about that. So I actually sold stock that I had from our company going public. Did a little startup on the side. My wife's like, okay, this is his midlife crisis. Get it out of the system. It's only going to cost me what? Okay, multiply that times 5. Sure. They go ahead and do it. She believed in me. That was good. And so I did a startup on the side building, mobile apps, trying to learn what was this. At that point you didn't know. People didn't know, would you sell apps, charge $30 for a mobile app? How does anybody make money? This is cool, but is this a real business? And so I quickly, kind of put a group of people together, kind of like you. I got a network going of people like me who had willing to take a risk, willing to experiment a bit. Mm-hmm. And we had a great critical success. I mean, we ended up getting written up in outside magazine stuff. Commercial, we talked about this before our show. Timing's a big thing, right? Idea is important. Hard work's another important part, but you're just luck and timing is everything. And but what happened? I actually left the company I've been working at for a long time, and then went on the road and said to people, "Look, why shouldn't a top agent be able to run their business out of the corner of a Starbucks table? Remember a couple of years ago when we were in London, out at this pub. How long ago was that? It feels like
I have no idea. Yeah, most decades.
Right. Yeah, I should be able to just pull out my phone or pull out and sit down and have a conversation and be able to hand my iPad or phone over to you and let you finish the transaction. So I took that on the road and went to a bunch of my contacts who were outside the insurance people I knew outside, who were at other companies, and said, hey, give us a try. So I got one person down in, a great, CEO for a company that down in Baltimore and Des Moines. He said, hey, Paul, come on, let's do it. Kind of the rest is been kind of just a revolving, rolling, wonderful opportunity. Meet people like you. You start to do new creative things, Gilad. It just attracts good people, right?
Yeah, they like to build that thing. And I think that you mentioned the timing. Timing is super important. I'm doing different martial arts, and there is a big say there that, timing takes speed. You can be younger than me. And again, we're talking about, I'm in my 40s. There are young people that are way faster, stronger, prettier, whatever. But if I know how to measure the timing, it doesn't matter that I'm slower. I can still have a shot. The probability reduces over time, but there's still a shot. And
I
this
still
is,
have a chance. Have you?
there is
I
a
still
chance, yeah,
have a chance.
maybe. But going now, you've been super active, very visible, and you built sort of an incubator that I'll love to hear more about. You have your own podcast.
Yes, certainly. The uh, prior company I was at, we bought this company that had just been smashed against some rocks in 2007, 2008. We acquired this in 2011, and we really led the brand, the sort of rebranding this company as sort of a younger, innovative company. It worked. So, version 2.0, when created Nassau Financial Group, bought Phoenix Life, put it together. I came up there to Hartford in 2016, and there were a lot of similarities between this company and the other company. Now, a much older company. Phoenix literally wrote a policy on Abraham Lincoln. Now, we talked about underwriting. It wasn't such a good underwriting decision, but we did play the claim. The customer service was good for Mrs. Lincoln when she came to collect the policy, as I'm told. But it's I'm trying to think. You've been to our building, correct? Did you come to visit Hartford? No,
Hartford, yes, but not your building.
not ours.
No.
If you've been to Hartford, we are in. I would arguably tell people we're the most beautiful modern building in Hartford. It's smack in the center, geographically, the heart of the city, and the building looks like it was built yesterday, but it's on the historic registry.
Mm-hmm.
That's called the Boat Building, 2 sides. Well, got there and realized, we're only going to use maybe half the space of the building. What do you do with the rest of the building? Okay, and as I arrived, 2016, nothing was going on in InsurTech. Now, I had spent time go out in the last company out in Iowa with Brian Hemisath, the Global Insurance Accelerator, Nick Gerhardt. I come there to Hartford, and Hartford has all these insurance companies all packed together. What's
Amazing.
not going on? And kind of at that moment, everybody, it was kind of interesting. We had this whole confluence of similar thinking. It's interesting how ideas kind of, the creativity, it's not something you have itself. I think it's something that's kind of in the air. You kind of have to, people who are in tune will hear it. And so the mayor, Luke Broman, phenomenal guy, is probably, I think he's the best mayor Hartford's had in years. Rhodes Scholar, worked for the Treasury Department, has done some wonderful stuff. And so he said, why aren't we like, look what's going on in InsurTech, why aren't we here? He knew the CEO of Techstars, try to get Techstars to come into Hartford. Same time, the state venture capital arm, whom I knew, said, well, Paul, why don't we have an accelerator here? I said, yes, we should do this. Stacy Brown, I think you know Stacy, right? He just woke up one day and said, okay, I'm going to start this meetup group.
Yeah, I
Nobody else is doing it.
Yeah, I think that Stacy was at least 3 or 4 times was the main reason why I came to Hartford. Yeah.
So we kind of all had this collective stuff. At the same time, the state of Connecticut said, had a governor who said, look, we've got to reinvigorate and start to bring some new jobs back into Connecticut. GE was moving out and said, we got to let's find some innovation zones and we'll put a little bit of matching funding to go with this. So we all kind of got pulled together like magnets and put one $1.5 million from the state, and then went around to all the different companies and got them to pitch in to fund Start Bootcamp to come to Hartford. And so Sabine came. We had all the accelerators pitch for this. It was great. We had some really good people compete for the contract, and for our company, we didn't have. God, we're doing a turnaround. I don't have. I was not going to go to my CEO and ask for a couple $100,000 to put in here. And I tried to swap our space. You'll appreciate this. I tried to borrow space. Didn't work out. But we stayed around the hoop on this. Now, fast forward, 3 or 4 years. Okay, then suddenly Startup Boot Campus here with or Techstars has an incubator across the street for Stanley Black & Decker. Hartford Health opens up its digital healthcare lab. Upward Labs kind of like a WeWorks. Shauna Schlossberg launches two, an age tech and a smart building lab. Brings in some great, sponsors, companies like ARP. She's brought in there with this big maker space that has opened up. Now we got all the startup coming in here. Well, finally, people say, Paul, stop bothering us. We'll build out half of our floor, bring some startups in. Okay, great. Dog catches car. What do you do with it? So I spent a lot of time talking to people to say, what could we do that was additive? A little competition, okay, but really, where are the gaps, in the marketplace? And, at that point, we're doing a really good job bringing startups like your company to show up, come to Hartford, visit it. But then, what makes you stay? Even if you get into one of these programs, 3 months, you have a lot of friends. We had some great conversations out there with some of your friends. 3 months to get a contract with an insurance company, good effing luck. Okay. You'll get a couple of meetings if you're lucky. So it's really apparent that we needed some longer term support. Now, I thought that the space would be the attraction. You'd come, people would set up shop, they'd actually work there. In reality, we did attract some really good startups locally who've been using the office space, but most were more attracted to long-term networking opportunities that we set up. So, the kind of the niche we found is creating events that are creating longer sets of conversations that aren't just pitch events. So if you come to our events physically, you'd meet, line officers at the Hartford Travelers, Symetra, Vanis, Mass Mutual. We got a lot of cooperation by just saying, look, this is an open source thing. You don't have to write us a check, just show up, meet some people. And by the way, the startups, don't pitch so hard. Just get to know them. Listen to them a little bit. So, this is now year 2. End of February, we started to connect the dots like can't believe. We had probably 30 VCs show up for our investor event. Nobody thought this was going to happen in Hartford, period. We got them to show up. We ended up organizing 190 one-on-one meetings with VCs. And then March comes. What do you do? How do you keep the momentum going? So we've had to basically flip virtually, kind of like, what you're doing here. First goal was keep the connections alive. So, boy, I can tell you everything that could possibly go wrong with a live stream, period.
Of course. Even now, I'm thinking about, is the quality of the picture of the video that I see you and record you, is it good enough? This is, one of the thoughts that's running in my head.
Oh, it is. Yeah. It totally is. And so, our focus now has been, first of all, keep the community connected, do it virtually. So we've taken our events virtual. We've had pretty good models of that. We actually held a quote solvathon in our own company. That was going to be in person, where all the startups were able to pitch, were able to listen to problems from people in our department, pitch solutions back. We did that virtually. This takes a long time. Now that was March. Okay. Finally, you can't believe this, Claude. We did our first investment. Not big.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Like
you as Nassau Re, or?
Yes. Us doing small investment did a safe, wow. It was a long time coming, but we did it. Check the box.
Check the box.
Big deal for us.
Can you talk about who is the company and the amount, or?
Not company amount at the moment. I'll tell you later, but it's we'll do some announcements a little later, but it's all inked and done. And the Symetra joined us. They liked what they saw before. We've done the same thing for them. They're in the process of having a lot of sort of very strategic. They basically pulled all the startups into their strategic planning discussions. So it's really interesting to see how this matures. Ask me in 3 months, it'll take that long to figure out what the impact is, but that's kind of interesting. Then this fall, we're going to be doing a sort of series of virtual events. Love to have you involved in this on reimagining retirement, post-COVID.
Yep.
Oh, it's completely changed, the calculus right now. And some of these things were changing before. I think that, what COVID has done is just accelerate a lot of trends that were already kind of taking place. Let's see
Mhm.
if I'm right. Like, there used to be this 4% rule of thumb. Okay, well, what? How much do you need? Well, if you need this much, use the rule of, the rule of 4%. If you need that, solve backwards to figure out how much money you need in the bank. Well, guess what? 4% rule doesn't work anymore because interest rates are so low. So that math doesn't work. Um, is a struggle for, you think of like bank CDs. People are complaining, oh, I'm only getting 1 or 2% on CDs. Now you're getting, 0.1%, on your money in your bank account. Now, if you're on a fixed income, how does that work? I think, unfortunately, a lot of these layoffs, as you know, these tend to disproportionately hit people who are older. So,
Mhm.
gosh, maybe I thought I was going to work another 5 or 6 years at this salary. I just had to take early retirement. What do I do? How do I sort through this? Um, it's your point. What's my life really going to be like in retirement? This is probably the hardest challenge for people to think through. And if you can solve this, it really isn't about money, but it's like, how do you want to spend your time, your psychic energy? Do you want to be near a city with people? Do you want to be near, an ocean? Is it, how are you spending the time in your day? Now, this, it's not about a boat. It's not about how big is my boat. It's really, where's my time and where's my energy? How's my reality going to be? Now, as of February, it may have sounded a great idea to say, listen, my goal is I'm going to take a 2-week cruise every single year. Oh, maybe not so good. Maybe that's not the best idea. Or, um, uh, I love that assisted living center. I can't wait to go in and have all my social activities taken care of and food. And oh, wait a second, that now looks like a nice jail that nobody can come and visit me.
Oh yeah,
So
listen.
I think it's good. It's forcing a lot of readjustment, people, in terms of thinking about your future self out 20 years.
Mhm. Well, hopefully not 20 years, but maybe 40 years. But
40
yeah,
years, right?
yeah, I hope so. No, that's great. That's a great question, and we've seen all the changes, and we actually talked about it earlier on. We touched the what does it mean? How this pandemic sort of scarred or created all kinds of weird behaviors that or accelerated behaviors that we've seen so far.
It's suddenly we have like a shared common experience across the entire planet. But how did you experience it? As you say, you're young. If this is 1/5 of your life spent living like this is a monstrously defining period of time. Whereas if you're older and you were isolated and you felt lonely, you know what? It's just accelerates. It feels like you'll never see anybody again, and there's no hope. Um, now if you're in the middle, okay, if you're, it's interesting. It's just, yeah, I think it was as unique as, yes, the bomb went off. We all felt the bomb, but the duration of this bomb is having very strange effects in different parts of the population of the world.
Mhm. And sadly, because we are only human, this bomb is just going to continue because we
Yes.
are acting against our best interest. And it's a little bit politicized, so I'm not going to touch that part.
It is interesting because insurance, I would say the insurance sector we're in, you have to take a long view. You think about the policies. We're different than an auto company, which
Yeah.
is, okay, guess what? You're after the policy, a year later, cancel, you raise your rates, you're done. Okay, bad. I write a life insurance policy for or do an annuity. You're really putting money in a time capsule and trusting us that 30 or 35 years down the line, we actually live up to our commitments.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree. You need companies, you need leaders, you need advisors. We need people thinking longer term than we are today. I heard a great interview. Please do not read this as any reflection of my politics whatsoever. You remember Anthony Scaramucci, who was
Yeah.
press
Mm-hmm.
secretary?
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard a great interview with him with Kara Swisher.
Mm-hmm.
I hopefully didn't butcher her name, but he said, the Chinese have these 100-year plans. He says, we'll never have a 100-year plan, but what we need is like 20-year plans. Because if we think out 20 years and think about what that world should look like, suddenly we've removed it from politics.
This is so funny. As an Israeli, although I've been living here for 11 years, we always look at the Americans like they have big plans. They have 5, 10, 20, 50 years plans. The Americans while Israelis, we are great in improvising, understanding what's the status, doing maybe 2, maybe 3 years plan and, playing with that. And then you go like, we don't have any plans. Look at the Chinese.
That's interesting.
Look at the Chinese. They have 50, 100 years plan. But it's a type of mentality. It's a type of the political structure. Yeah, it's, but yeah, it's.
Well, it shows you how many different, look, what's more interesting than asking you who you're going to vote for? It's, what experiences in your life led you to believe the following, right? And I think that kind of removes, it takes a step back from the politics. And I think we're also shaped in terms of how we view the world based on where we come from. And I think we all tend to forget, that's very interesting. That's a wholly different way of looking that, thank you, Gilad. That's
we can talk about it more about.
See a different look at the very same issue.
Listen, we can talk about it for many more hours, but that will be off the record. And needless to say that I will never say who am I voting to or which company, because I find myself working with Republicans, Democrats, and the people who vote for them. So but politics is very important for us because insurance, we are working with the government, we are working with regulators, we are working with lobbyists. There are many aspects that we are working one-on-one, especially that insurance, what we are providing is that a financial safety net. It's not just, okay, there is a catastrophe, or even, health insurance, life insurance, how you can actually merge things that will come. And it's very interesting that I had a couple of conversations now with the ITC regarding life insurance and how you can actually merge all the financial advisors, the robo-advisors, with the different trends of health and finance, where everything merges together. Because it's much more than that. It's where, when you talk about retirement, okay, great. But you need to remember that your health is the biggest factor, your health and your quality of life. So how do you bring that together? And that will be something very interesting to see how, in the next several years.
Oh, it will. It's fascinating. And that's a whole nother discussion there.
Oh, yeah. We can continue that.
Whole other, yeah.
Now, tell me, before we are closing this conversation, before we open an offline conversation, any interesting books or what have you been up to since you cut down your 3 hours of commute?
Oh, well, I'll tell you, my one was health. This is let's see, ran 630 miles with my daughter, who came back from working in the city work out of her house. Fortunately, then she broke her femur on a trail run with me. So guess whose fault from my wife's perspective that was.
Yep.
Yeah, books. I'll tell you, I've had just read some great books, like some pertinent to the pandemic. Great book written 2013, Working the Year Without Pants. I probably could change the title a little bit. It's a story of a guy from Microsoft who goes to work for Automatic in 2011. Automatic's a company that runs WordPress. And by the way, that's a $2 or $3 billion company that was born and continues to be run virtually. So how did that work? How does the culture? That was completely fascinating. Yeah, I've watched some great movies on Netflix, some streamings, ridiculous ones. But I'll
give us one recommendation.
One I just read. I'll tell you one I just watched, and it was let's see, My Teacher, the Octopus. Okay, on Netflix, filmed like 2010 in South Africa off the Cape of Good Hope, where a guy literally spends a year getting to know an octopus. Now, it was good. We watch it, and then I go to Twitter and I see how what Twitter has done to it. I'm like, oh,
Oh my God. Let's not go
that's
about
on play now. I would say it's worth the hour and a half, and then we can talk later. You can say, was it good or was it like?
I'll check it out. I'll check it out most definitely. I can recommend that. So I have my microphone standing on a few books here, actually. So that will be the first one, which is a different Robert Galbraith. It's, I would say,
Interesting.
a bigger. Yeah. So yeah, Robert Galbraith. That's basically J.K. Rowling, not our Robert Galbraith. Yeah, this is the fourth book of Cormoran Strike, and because of this book, which is, you know, it's so this is why I used the microphone, and because she's been using quotes from the fairy queen, I purchased this one as well. Actually, very interesting. So it's a poetry book from the 15th or the 16th century. It's yeah, I have this weird tendency to dive into that stuff. I'm still.
Oh no, that's interesting. We've been, you know, other stuff. We've been watching like the The Crown, the special on the Windsor. My daughter and wife love this stuff. It's fascinating. Fascinating though to see how much has not changed in how humans live and work together.
People are people. At the end
are.
of the day, we are faulty. Same emotions, same intelligence. Nothing changed except from the technology and the tools that we have.
Yeah.
And I would say that we become less sophisticated. We think that we are more, but the convenience that technology provided us just dulled the senses that earlier we had, while it made other senses way better and skills that no one thought about earlier on.
No, if anything takes more than 5 seconds to read, it's like we're
TDLR, man. Didn't read it. Too long to read. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, Paul, thank you very, very much for joining me for this very lengthy and very interesting conversation about many different things that we didn't really plan. And that's the beauty about this podcast.
It is. Well, it was a pleasure. And we'll have you on ours sometime in the near future.
Yeah, it will be my pleasure.